And digital content creator friends who are joining us today. Some flew in from Manila yesterday. So please stand to be recognized. So we have from Asian Journal and Balikbayan Magazine, Star, PBC News, Adobo Magazine, WhatsApp Pilipinas. We also have from Deal Street Asia, DYRF, Grappler, The Freeman, Sunstar Cebu, iNews PH, Zooming Live, Dagami News, Cebu Finest, Skyscraper, Y Cebu, Els TV, Cebu Happenings, Mactan Island News, Paulo Rigotti, Richie Donato, Queen TV, Cebu Highlights, and Cebu State Media. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our media partners. We have CDN Digital, MyTV, Independent Investor, Mindanao Times, TBC, Adobo Magazine, Business Manual, PR Station, WhatsApp Pilipinas, and Asian Journal. Thank you for being here and for your continued support in amplifying the message. We greatly appreciate your presence. And now, for our esteemed panelists, well, of course, everybody knows Tina Amper, the founding organizer of Gigs on the Beach. And we have Dave Overton, the co-founding organizer and chief geek of Gigs on the Beach. And also we have Attorney Josel Batapa, Undersecretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, who has been very supportive of GoHub even before her pre-USEC days. Of course, Jojo Flores, the managing partner of Plug and Play. Jojo has been with us in GoHub since 2013, one of our key strategic partners. And of course, Jay Fajardo, the CEO of Cubo Idea Space, who has been with us also from way back, since way back. And we have, I think Jojo Malolos is still coming. Paymong, the CEO of Paymong, he's also representing Sinigang Valley Association. And we have Jerky Pelaez from Kickstart Ventures, and GM Antonio Mauricio of the National Development Corporation. So let's now begin with opening statements from each of our panelists. Tina, would you like to start?
Thank you. Hi everyone, how's it going? Good? Great. All right. Thank you so much for being here. For everyone else, my name is Tina Amber. I'm one of the co-founding organizers of Geeks on the Beach. It's an international conference for those who are passionate about tech, startups design, and making the world brighter. And this is our 7th year of hosting this international conference. This is our 2nd time in our hometown of Cebu. So we're glad to be here, and we're glad that we have all these supporters and all of you here today. The goal of Geeks on the Beach is to support the entrepreneurs, the startup founders, the aspiring business people that want to use technology for good, that want to use technology for profit, that want to use technology to elevate their livelihoods and contribute to the economic growth of the country. I am honored to be amongst an amazing organizing team. We have worked together since 2013, so that's 11 years. We've known each other for a long time. I was born and raised in Cebu. I'm currently based abroad, but this is why we work well with the international community. We have all kinds of experiences. The first 5 years that we organized Geeks on the Beach, I was based in Cebu. We loved it. We still love doing it now. The reason why we do it is, again, to support the founders. And we have real stories where founders and entrepreneurs have gotten funding, have gotten mentorship, have gotten partnerships because of Geeks on the Beach. My hope is that we can quantify the millions of pesos that these startup founders have received from investors they met in and around Geeks on the Beach. And that's all I have to say. I'm just glad to be here, and I'm going to pass it on to Dave.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, so it's great to be here. It's also great to be a geek, right? And that has not always been a good thing. That has not always been a positive term, but I think it's something that we want to change, and we want to build an ecosystem that really enables geeks. We want to be the best of the best. Now, I've lived in Cebu for 20 years, and we're long on the Philippine ecosystem. Tina and I met because she was starting a grassroots organization with another gentleman here, Mark Gwen Consejo, and they were just trying to get tech conversations going. I know Jay Fajardo was building something called Roof Camp around the same time. Kickstart was then coming into space, an idea space. But what are we here for? We want to build an ecosystem where the geeks can really thrive. And that means enabling Filipinos to be able to build startups, to find technology jobs, to do amazing designs. Even as the world is changed by AI, how do we grasp that and really enable the Filipino culture? So that's why we're excited to be here. Geeks on a Beach is something that's unique. It's not like the traditional conference where everyone is dressed up and there's formality. We force everyone to come to the beach, and you know what happens? Magic happens when you're at the beach. And Tina's told that story. There's so many stories of founders coming here and getting funding from investors, from founders coming and looking for partners who will join their crazy adventure. And that's what Geeks on the Beach is about creating an environment where collisions and serendipity can take place. So thank you so much for coming today. I'll pass it on.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jackie Pelaz, AVP of Legal and Compliance at Kickstart Ventures. So Kickstart Ventures is the corporate venture capital arm of Globe Ayala. So we invest in early growth stage startups, typically from seed all the way up to Series C. And our investment thesis is broadly across 4 themes on how we think about the way we want our future to be, not just in the Philippines, but in the region and in the world. So it's spread out across the future of work, the future of transactions, the future of how we live, and the future of resource allocation. So we invest broadly across those 4 themes. We invest not only in the Philippines, but regionally and globally as well. But beyond investing as well, what Kickstart prides itself in doing as well is really helping startups beyond just funding. Because like as Dave mentioned, it really takes a village, it takes an ecosystem to bring the startup to the next level. If you want to get to a unicorn, you're just not relying on funding, you're relying on connections with the ecosystem, connections with the corporation. Who do you know? Who can we trust? Who can we introduce you to? So that's part of what we do, right? Like investors, like it's not just about the money, but it's also like backing up with institutional knowledge, expertise, and so that's what we do at Kickstart.
Thank you. I'm Anton Mauricio. I'm the General Manager of the National Development Company. Normally, people call it corporation, but our name is National Development Company because, we are older than the Securities and Exchange Commission. We are 105 years old. And during the time of the Americans in 1990, when we were founded, American companies were headed by a general manager. And so my position is not president or CEO, it's general manager. I am an undersecretary aligned with the DTI, which is our mother agency. And our chairman is the trade secretary, the DTI secretary. So why are we here? Well, the government, the Philippine government, has been trying to support startups. And back in 2019, finally, as undersecretary, will explain later. Basically, what happened was the government, by law, Innovative Startup Act, assigned 3 agencies, the DTI, the DOST, and the DICT, to handle the Startup Grant Fund and the Startup Venture Fund. For the Startup Venture Fund, they needed a fund manager. NDC is ISO certified as a fund manager. We've been ISO certified for the past 14 years. And our mandate, apart from being the oldest government investment company, is unique. We can invest in any area, in diverse industries for national development. On the use of funds, we invest in pioneering developmental, sustainable, inclusive, and innovative projects. But I'll focus on the developmental here in my opening statement. The most important thing on the developmental side of our investment is that it benefits the Philippines and Filipinos. Doesn't really matter ultimately if the project or business is owned by non-Filipinos, as long as it benefits Filipinos here and abroad. So that's one. Of course, the preference is it's owned and run by Filipinos, but that's not necessarily a requirement. As long as it benefits the Philippines, that is really the criterion for development. Now, that's for the use of funds for the investment. For the sourcing of funds, we are hopeful that we will be finally getting the allocation from the national budget for the Startup Venture Fund. Because after 2019, we were supposed to get 250 million per year. So you count it, that's how much we were supposed to get. But since 2020 early, there was a pandemic, the Department of Budget and Management did not approve. And since then, we could not get approval. Why? Because we could not release the funding to specific startups. Why? Because the process is so difficult. It's still in its infancy, and even after 5 years, we're saying, okay, we're still streamlining it. But we have the right mindset. We are coordinating with our stakeholders, and I'm confident that over the past 2 years, we have coordinated more than we ever had as NDC, with the startup ecosystem. I have talked to all the stakeholders here several times over the past couple of years. So we want the NDC, being the official Philippine government support of the startup ecosystem in terms of investing in startups. We want us to be proactive so that the image of the Philippine government is to be really supporting the ecosystem and not become a burden or a hurdle for investment into startups, which mostly sometimes that is the paradigm. We're trying to change that, and this government has been trying to do that for the past couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Yusek Giselle. You can also call me Yusek Jobs because that's my acronym, Giselle Matapasige. And I'm actually called Counselor Jobs, Attorney Jobs in my previous life as Counselor of Bacolod. And that's why I'm here. The bottom line for me here is opportunities and jobs for the Filipino people. I'm your geek in government, officially. And, I just would like to share that prior to the passage of the ISA law, Gigs on a Beach was actually held outside of the last quarter. Normally, mga August, July. But in 2022, when I was appointed as Undersecretary, under, of course, the dynamic leadership of Secretary Ivan Jan Uy, I told Director Emmy, where is Gigs on a Beach? I miss Gigs on a Beach because prior to 2023, or this is the second season, I think there was five runs of Go Up, and I attended 3. And I enjoyed it because I found the same spirits, So, because if you're a geek in government sometimes, or not only sometimes, oftentimes you're out of place. Yes. So, but when I became Undersecretary in 2022, I said, let us revive Gigs on the Beach. And let us put it as the masterpiece or the the big event within the Philippine Startup Week. And so, I'd like to greet everyone, happy Philippine Startup Week that's happening this week. And I bring some good news to echo the point of GM here. We have what we call the ISA Consortium, the Innovative Startup Act. And it's composed of your 3 dynamic departments, DICT, DTI, and DOST. And we have 2 dynamic private sector members. One is sitting here beside me, Jojo Flores, and Diane Eustachio over there. And under ISA, we all vouch to work together as 3 agencies helping the startup innovation community. And so our theme for this year is Isa para sa Bayan. And after that, there's another sub-theme, Igniting Filipino Innovation. And so I'm here today to support this advocacy of igniting Filipino innovation. And at the outset, I'd like to say that the Geeks on the Beach event is the biggest event where you see all the ecosystem builders and the innovators come together each year to just help and drive innovation for this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle, and welcome everybody. You are all storytellers in press. So what's the big story here? I think I want to kind of at least share with you what I think what the big story here. I'm Jojo Flores, and I operate a VC firm and an accelerator all around the world. And I see what's happening all around in other parts of the world in terms of technology and innovation. Okay? This tech startup economy is a $3 trillion economy. Okay? Philippines' share in that pie is $6 billion. So it's less than 1%. Tama ba yung aking math? Okay, it's less than 1% of our share in the global economy. I think, but if you look at the largest companies in the world, you look at Fortune top 500 or top 10 companies in the world. Hey, Jojo! Kapang tukayo ko.
Oh.
So if you look at the biggest companies in the world, the majority of them are actually tech companies. Google it. So, I think that's also where the future economy is going to be. And Philippines is not there yet, so we need to have more attention in building technology in the country, or else we'll be left out. And that's why events like Geeks on the Beach become very important. I'll give you an example. You probably know the company called NVIDIA. Okay? NVIDIA is a $4 trillion company now. Okay? And actually, he's my neighbor, si Jensen. 5 minutes away from my office in Sunnyvale. Well, he's in Santa Clara, but we're 5 minutes away from each other. And if you look at the company NVIDIA, $4 trillion, and I think they have about 30,000 employees. You divide 4 trillion divided by 30,000 employees. That's probably around $130 million of value created per employee. Now, you compare that to the Philippines. You all know, for example, our IT BPO industry. It's a 35, and we all know, siguro, sabihin natin, mataas ang pasweldo dyan sa IT BPO. Magtrabaho ka dyan, anak. Di ba? Naririnig natin sa mga magulang natin. But, look at the numbers too. It's a $35 billion industry, employing 1.7 million people, more or less. You do the math, 35 billion divided by 1.7 million workers, that's probably around $20,000 per employee value, per employee created. $20,000 compared to $130 million. So what's the opportunity? I don't want to say that it's a problem, blah, blah, blah. It's not a problem. It employs a lot of people. It creates $35 billion in our GDP. But I think the bigger opportunity here is what can we do as a country now and strategically so that we can get to that increase man lang natin from $30,000 to $1 million per person in terms of value created. Maski hindi na natin nabutin yung $130 million ni NVIDIA. Pero anong pwede natin gawin for the Philippines that can increase that value from $20,000 to $1 million? And I think one of the important steps that we can take is really to support tech startups, because that's where you can create that value, that intellectual property value. And that's why, we've always been supportive of events like Geeks on the Beach, Philippine Startup Week, and all of the other initiatives of the government, because this is really our goal. How we can create a more valuable GDP for our country. And startups, as we can see in the Fortune 500 companies today, that's where, Alphabet is one of them. Okay? Alphabet started in my building in Silicon Valley, in Palo Alto, in 1996. Now they're a $2 trillion company. So I've seen that story happen. I'd love for that story to be replicated, at least in the Philippines, in one form or another. And if you can make that your story and inspire entrepreneurship, science, STEM, math in our youth, our universities, that would be great. You would have contributed to the Philippines being great. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. Sige, that's a pretty good thing to follow. Medyo mahirap. Pero first I'll introduce myself. I'm Jay Fajardo. I'm the Executive Director of Ideas Space. And we were very early supporters of Geeks on the Beach from day one. In fact, the Executive Director of Ideas Space back in 2013 is key, is an integral creator of Geeks on the Beach, because it was born out of a lunch that they all had together. Wala lang si Earl na yun. I thought he was coming. Pero yeah, si Earl Valencia. And I was also a very early supporter, personally, of Geeks on the Beach. And which is sort of like a testament to how each one of us here supports it, not just because we're part of a specific institution or company, but because we have our own personal skin in the game as well. We want to see the ecosystem prosper, and as I joined Ideas Space just this year, the mission and the crusade continues. There's really nothing in it for us, per se. It's the collective prosperity of the ecosystem that we're all looking forward to. That's why we're all here. Now, and that goes for Jojo, Kickstart, and everybody else. It's like we're here out of for the love of the ecosystem, love of the country. Now, going back to what Jojo was saying, I wanted to echo it because it's very important. It's true that in the past couple of years, the richest companies in the world have transformed and migrated from what used to be the traditional lines of businesses, raw materials heavy, manufacturing, etc., to very IP and brain power dependent businesses. And you're talking about the Googles, the Microsofts, etc., Nvidia, and it's highly scalable and it's very dependent on a rich collection of human resource. And if you look at us, the Philippines, that's where we excel in. We have a large, talented resource pool that has become experienced in creating startups because all of our BPO, all of our developers, etc., have been employed with tech startups in Silicon Valley. We were the ones building these startups. We're part of that story, Silicon Valley story. So this is a field that we can compete in and should excel in. It shouldn't take much resources. We don't need the natural resources. We just need human resources. I think Josel was spot on saying that jobs is key because that's our pathway towards perhaps bringing our ecosystem finally, at least regionally, into the forefront. So yeah, I'll leave it at that and pass it on to Jojo.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. Let's now hear from Jojo M.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon. Can I ask what the question is? Alright. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm Jojo Malolas. I'm CEO of PayMongo, and I think I'm here to represent Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is our version of Silicon Valley, but it's more a conglomeration of startups, founders, and also investors and government. So we have Silicon Valley. We've set up Silicon Valley out of again some camaraderie amongst the early founders in the Philippines, with the objective of probably livening up the ecosystem by getting as many members as possible. Early this year, they have decided to formalize it by setting up a board of trustees, which will now at least govern and try to create the strategy moving forward. What can an association like Silicon Valley do to further the objectives of making sure that the ecosystem formed amongst investors, startups, founders, and relevant stakeholders can actually in more definite terms achieve what Jojo earlier was saying, which is how much impact can we really have on the economy of the country, how much impact can we really have on the lives of people whose problems we're trying to solve by way of a startup. And we are also trying to understand and appreciate the realities of being in an ecosystem. And I think that's where the differentiation is, right? Despite the fact that I think Gigs on the Beach is one platform that we can use to do this, because this is my first time to attend Gigs on the Beach. But when you see the reality that this is a balanced presentation of the reality of being a startup. It's difficult, right? Every successes that you hear are successes based on certain stages in a startup's life. But the elephant in the room is that we still don't have a unicorn, right? We have corporate or conglomerate unicorns in Gcash and Maya, but we don't have a conglomerate, which is a really honest to goodness unicorn. And the reason is that because it's really difficult, right? So that's why platforms like this, we hear something from the support of government, the support of policymakers, and probably that's not available to everybody, right? So the objective of Silicon Valley is to probably conglomerate all of those ideas, and in a way, just find a way by which we can really, maybe in the next Geeks on the Beach, we will be talking about successes in terms of collaborating with the ICT, or maybe NDC will basically be coming up with after one gig on the beach, we actually have done 2, 3, or 4 startups that have actually moved from funding to actually implementation. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why what I have seen, although the first half, is really something that I think we can really rally on. Because I think the sessions that I've seen is a combination of showing. I think I like Jay's session earlier from the 3 lady founders. Kept talking about the travails and difficulties. If they did not have that strength in really pursuing what they wanted, they must have shut down already. I was talking to another founder earlier and basically said, I'm tired of making these pitches. I always win, but nobody's funding me. Right? So how do you help? How do we now all rally behind all of this? The product is good, the pitch is always winning, but there's nobody funding. There must be a problem with a solution to such a problem that we don't know. Maybe we can come up with a startup to solve that particular problem. Right? But again, Silicon Valley would like to at least take all of the pros and cons, the problems and the challenges and the successes, and use all of the stakeholders that we have to be able to really achieve what we wanted to achieve. I like what Jojo said in terms of having an impact on GDP. I think that's the only reason, that's the only way that you can say that this movement is succeeding, right? I don't know if you know, Gojek is a triple, quadruple, maybe a $9 billion, $10 billion dollar company in Indonesia. Yes, so in Indonesia, but its contribution to the GDP of Indonesia is 1%. Imagine how many groceries will we have to have an impact on like that? How many sprouts we will have? Paymo do we have to do that? And that should be the common thing. And this is the best. This is the best platform. We also have QBO. We have Philippine Startup Week, and this is basically all of the platforms that we do. But we cannot do it alone, right? So and then we have a concerted effort towards doing that. And I think that's just very important. We address reality. It's very difficult to set up something like this. So congratulations, Tina. But at the end of the day, the only way that we can make you happy is you find the next Geeks on the Beach. You find really, really successful startups, coming out of the learnings in this type of event.
I have a question. How long does it take to grow a unicorn, Jojo? How long does it take to grow a unicorn?
The biggest success, at least this is the biggest success story that we have, is Dropbox. We invested in Dropbox when the valuation was below $5 million in 2007, and we exited in 2016 when the value was at $10 billion. So 2016, 9 years?
9 years.
9 years for us.
Gcash is 20 years, right?
Yeah. So, look, 9 years, but we move fast, so...
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we've learned a lot of things from many people. And at least for me, this is what I want to do. What I've been trying to do also is bring back, share those best practices, best experiences to the Philippines, and hopefully, and actually with the Philippine government today is very accommodating, so hopefully we can really just accelerate that whole process and witness a unicorn for the Philippines in the next 5 to 10 years. Everybody in the other room said a while ago that in a couple more years, Paymong will be our unicorn.
Nice to know.
So the challenge is there, Tukayo, for you to get that done.
We're all about numbers. We've organized this for 7 years. I personally would want to have metrics that we're tracking to keep ourselves accountable. So, are we saying within 5 years we're going to have a unicorn?
Well, as I said, if for example, Stripe, we should strive to do that. But if winter comes in every other year, that's very difficult to do because being a unicorn is a product of a lot of things, right? If for example, I was a CEO of JG Dev, which is an equity ventures company. We invested in a company called Darwin Box when it was just valued at 200 million. In a year's time, it became 1.2 billion, right? So, and it's because it's because of the aggressive Stripe. Stripe was a unicorn in 4 years, right? It's now $95 billion, right? So after 5 more years, it's $95 billion. It's a lot of factors, but we will try to do as much as we can, right? So, but again, it remains a concerted effort. Things change, presidents change, policies change, right?
The thing is, we also don't have numbers on our side. We probably produce at the most 100 startups a year. And you compare that to Indonesia that probably produces 2,000 startups a year. Singapore that produces 4,000 or 5,000 startups a year. So we don't have the numbers also on our side. And that's why your storytelling becomes important. If you can meet founders outside, interview them, get their story, hopefully it also will inspire 10,000 other students in the universities that read your article and they say, let me start a company, a startup. Interview Jojo. He's a very successful entrepreneur. Who else here? There's a lot of people here, So, again, it's all about
interview Jojo also.
There's it's all about the storytelling and telling the right story, picking the right story, subject that you'll meet here at GoAb today and tomorrow, and hopefully that's why it's important. I think that's why we're having a press con. It's not to have our faces in whatever, but to really just spread the story that having a startup, doing a startup is a cool thing. And by the way, you can be a millionaire too if you do it right.
Okay. So thank you all for sharing those inspiring and insightful thoughts. So don't worry, Jojo. We've lined up interviews with startups. So now let's move on with our Q&A session. So I encourage our media friends to ask questions they may have from our panelists. Please state your name and media outlet when you ask your question. So can we have our first question from Raptor?
John Sichon from Raptor. So we're very curious. We received a report from Globicor Venture Capital, and that report states that a lot of the involvement coming from DICT, NEDA, really starts at the idea stage. So you're working with a lot of TBIs. So we're wondering right now, because most of the startups that we're beginning to see in the Manila sphere are mostly fintech. So what happens to the other startups in those areas? And I'm pretty sure Yusek can answer this one.
Thank you for the question. That's really our goal right now. As I shared earlier, 2 days ago, we consulted countryside startups. There's really a big disparity between the number of startups based in Metro Manila and in the countryside. And we have seen that problem, and we don't want to sweep that problem under the rug. We need to really find solutions. So there are 5 areas in terms of policy that we want to address, but I would like to just share with our friends from the media that several months ago, the Innovative Startup Act Steering Committee, composed of DOST, DTI, and DICT, we had a very intensive planning session for 2 days. And we identified our internal and external challenges. Our internal challenges is that ISA is a platform for 3 agencies, and we need to continue to work seamlessly. Unfortunately, ISA as a steering committee has no funding, so we are eating on our own respective departmental budget, which only allots a small amount for startup and innovation. Secondly, since we have no funding, we are able to only deploy activities and programs within the NCR and the Manila area. So we also have our external challenges, and that is the need to deploy more incubators, more mentors, more accelerators, more innovation program down to every region. And so, 2 days ago, we said we need to create regional hubs for startup innovation. So this will continue for the next 3 days, 3 years, and up to 2028. We've already identified Cebu, maybe we could identify Davao, Iloilo, and the rest of the other regions. So in terms of our biggest strategy now, we are looking at policy. It is time to take a look at all the policies impacting innovation. So in terms of policy and strategy, we identified 5 areas. First is human resource. We need to inculcate the innovation mindset in our educational system. We're looking at some startup innovation modules that we can present to DepEd, to CHED, and even to TESDA. We need to identify the DNA of a startup. Not all of us can be employees, but that's what our educational system is training us to do. Go to college and get a job. But we need to start the mindset that go to college and start a business. So that's also something we can do in terms of human resource. The next is system. I have to admit, systems in government is so slow. Okay, we even developed a buzzword 2 days ago. We said, it's so government when things are delayed. I have to be very candid. And third is resources, of course. Policy areas around resources. With activities like Go Up, we spotlight this need for innovation, so you can actually help us drive more resources to innovation. Fourth is sustainability. How can we move from one president to another president and really tell all the leaders of this country that we need to invest in innovation, not only in technology and also in infrastructure. And for me, the most powerful technology ever is collaboration, because that's where we bring all these minds together. And the last is ecosystem. And so ecosystem is really very important, not only in the national level, but in the regional level. So with that, I'd like to say that in the next 3 years, ISA, or the consortium of the 3 departments, and particularly the ICT, will help build the regional ecosystems for startup in all the regions of this country. You know why? Because we talk of 2 unicorns as the goal of ISA, 2 or 5 unicorns, but 2 days ago, we said, aside from 2 unicorns, let's develop 1,000 Carabaos. These are the startups that are not yet unicorns. But I have to introduce to you a term. I started it also in the ISA planning workshop. Aside from the 1,000 Carabaos, let's also help at least 100 fetuses. Because in every university, you have ideas that are fetus, but that can grow to become a unicorn. How can you even think of a unicorn when you don't nurture the fetus in the universities, in the different regions? So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Sorry. Maybe you can ask Tina for a response on this. This is from the Startup Ecosystem Report from Startup Link. This is what they said. Apparently, the Philippines has 5 ranked cities for the best places to start up. Manila leads the score 12 times greater than Cebu City, which is second ranked. So they're saying this, they're emphasizing this. They're showing a degree of centralization.
Yes.
As a Cebuana.
So I'm kind of radical in the sense that, you know, if you're an entrepreneur, whether you do it here in Cebu or in Manila or in Davao or in London or in GC, right? You are starting a business and it's never easy. There's a saying in the startup ecosystem world. I consider myself a tech startup ecosystem builder, and I work with ecosystem builders around the world. And there's a saying for entrepreneurship, for startups: same problems, different weather. Same problems, different weather, right? So you have problems here in Cebu for you don't get funding, it's hard for you to find the right talent for your startup. You know, your startup founders, you fight with each other, you quit. Those are the exact same problems with other tech startups around the world, right? It may be the frequency may not be as much, and you know the value of your startup may be different, but it's at the end of the day you're building a business. And startups is really just tech-based businesses. It's never easy. It is not for everyone, because if you're someone like me growing up, you know, used to my mom and dad working for government, coming into work 9 a.m., leaving at 5 p.m., that's not a life of an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur is someone who continuously works and thinks about how to, you know, prosper in his business. So a big part of our success story too is that you have to know yourself, what you like to do, what your capabilities are, what you're good at this stage in your life, what you're willing to give up, right? So if you have a new family, you have babies, and you're building a business, obviously you can do it, but it's not going to be as easy as you would think, right? So does that make sense? All right, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Savitskaya Imperial from Cebu State Media. I would like to address this question to Sir Dave. You mentioned a while ago about AI. So in terms of AI, in this Goa Conference 2024, what is the most heated discourse regarding AI, and what is the role of Goa in destigmatizing AI, especially for the benefit of startups?
Great question. I would say I'm not sure there's one distinct thing. I think what most people though are thinking about is, how is AI going to change my life? So in 2017, I gave maybe a controversial talk at the BPO sector conference in Cebu, and I said, machine learning, which is what AI is based on, is going to change the world. Call center jobs will be gone. Fast forward, 2022, 2023 as ChatGPT and OpenAI came out. My company, which does software development and design, we said, oh no, they've come for our jobs. And we were really scared, and we had to take an honest look at the reality. What will the future hold? Now, we don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't project what the future will hold, but there is going to be a dramatic shift, right? I would say we see something similar to maybe the Industrial Revolution. It's going to be painful. Jobs, sectors, they're going to change. You may be a call center agent today, and that may not be a job opportunity in the next year, right? That is the reality that we are looking at. Now, what we have to do is we have to reskill and upskill and train people. Now, I don't think outsourcing will go away right away, right? Like, that will not change. It will be a long tail type of industrial shift. But if you were a blacksmith at the time when horses were being ridden and then the car was introduced, you suddenly don't have demand after a few years. And I think what we will see with AI is we have to figure out what the next opportunities are. Now, I'm an accelerationist, meaning like I believe in moving into technology and moving and accelerating faster. It will be painful, it will be hard, but I think some of the topics that are being covered at GoApp are how do we do that? And specifically, there was a panel earlier with support from the British Embassy on what does the governance look like. And Yusek Giselle was on that. They shared some great insights of what are the things that we need to think about and talk about. So it's an ongoing conversation, but I think that AI will change the world. And I think the Philippines has to be able to embrace that quickly and have somewhat of a first mover advantage to be able to not only sustain, but to thrive in the new economy.
Thank you. Can I add? Can I speak for the IT-BPM industry? Because Jojo and David already touched on that. As you know, I mentioned earlier, my other code name is Yusek Jobs. In short, any industry that creates jobs is good for me. For me, the startup innovation space is going to be one of the biggest job creators for this country, just like the IT-BPM space, just like the freelancing space, just like even the digital nomad space, because we're also promoting digital nomads, which is a growing industry. I guess we have some digital nomads here attending Geeks on the Beach. So I'd like to say that the IT-BPM industry is here to stay. We are also going to reach our targets, but I have to say in the area of AI, the IT-BPM industry is one also of the early adopters. More than 50% of the IT-BPM company have already integrated AI into their system. So the issue is really how are our IT-BPM workers even also prepared in terms of AI? Because I have to tell you this, AI is feeding from the ground, from below. In short, the lower your skills are, the higher chances you get disrupted. So we need to also increase our IT-BPM workers' skill in AI as much as we need to increase our startup community in terms of AI. So what I'm trying to say is startups can be a good avenue for AI skills to come into the mainstream.
Okay, can we have I think that's the last question from Mars.
Good afternoon, Mars of Beer Street Asia. This year hasn't really been a very good year for startups, not only in the Philippines, but globally in terms of funding, because there's been a funding slump since after the pandemic. Now, I'd like to know your projections for next year. I mean, I have a couple of questions actually. Your projections for next year, and there was a mention about really successful companies in the Philippines but are not funded. So what's the problem here? Do we have a problem with valuation? Do we have a problem with scalability? Do we have companies that are copycats of companies in Indonesia or Singapore? What problem are we having? We have the same demographics with Indonesia. We have really brilliant founders, but still there was a mention of good startups that are not getting funded. And also, lastly, I just want to complete my questions. Lastly, what are the sectors that you think are exciting for next year aside from fintech? Thank you so much.
I think, yeah.
Thanks, Mars. I guess there's multi-part question, so I guess I'll have to give a multi-part answer. On the funding crunch, as we all know, as we've all experienced, or as a lot of us have been going through, coming out of the pandemic, during the pandemic, valuations were very high. There was a lot of liquidity in the market, but over the past 2 years, we've been going through this thing that we all call tech winter. The U.S. is starting to get out of it, or already probably out of it. In Southeast Asia, what we've seen, we've been a little bit slower in getting out of it. Sometimes it could have been systemic in the sense that there was hesitancy to do down rounds, maybe. They wanted to preserve certain valuations, but then the market the market wouldn't take, right? So that's one reason that led to why this is happening. But nowadays, because of this, now we're starting to see founders like realize that, oh, okay, this is really happening. This is actually real. Valuations are starting to go down, and now it's really up to both founders, investors, ecosystem players to find ways to bridge gaps, right? So, like, one of the things that have been happening is it's now taking longer to raise money. So time from seed to Series A is longer. Time from Series A to Series B is longer. So a lot of what we do is really trying to support portfolios on how to bridge that gap in that space. I'll pass it on first to maybe Jay, and then I can pick up on your other questions, Mars.
Sure. He's right. The climate is really not conducive to the old investing practices that we've experienced both during the ZERP times of ZERP. You mentioned the Gobi report. Why it seemed like we were focusing too much on fintech? Because that's the safe investment.
Hindi siya barbecue.
It's a safe investment in times of the post-ZERP environment. The smart money will of course move it to safe investments, and fintech is safe. Sabi nga ni Jojo, so Jojo na yung last Philippine Startup Week that invest in fintech, especially mature fintech, you're bound to grow. It's just bound to grow. Whether it's fast or just just a steady growth, it will grow. So it's a safe bet. Meanwhile, for people like us, for example, if we want to still aggressively invest and to we see it as sort of like a reset of the environment, of the target environment. It's perfect now, or it's the confluence of factors would drive you to invest in early stage startups now. Early stage is sort of like the sweet spot because we're so low that there's nowhere else to go but up, right? We're already down. We're there. So now this is the opportunity to start looking at startups that are in the very early stage for you to gain the same multiples that they experienced before. Wala na yun. Tapos na yun. So a lot of VCs are actually pre-terminating their liquidation back to the LP, so that they reinvest in that to enjoy the same experience. It's also perfect because the startups that are existing today that still survive in 2024 and 2025 are startups that have built their business models on strong fundamentals, proper unit economics. They've survived times where they couldn't raise funding, so they focus more on positive cash flow, which sort of like galvanized their team, their organization, the product, everything towards a much more successful pathway. Rather than before, libre pera, bahala na. No? We're still seeing that now in the AI space because it's hot. And there was a shake-up because every time OpenAI comes up with a new GPT model version, it sort of like kills 1,000 startups in snap of a finger. So ibang usapan yun. No? But AI in itself is also a catalyst for what we see as a new technology supercycle, which is similar to the birth of the internet, the birth of the personal computer, etc., etc. We're now in that stage. So there's so much opportunity. There's so much things to discover. There are a lot of things that will happen in the next 12 months that we never imagined will happen. So yun yung, for us, early stage investment, it's an exciting time.
Can I just add a little bit? And I want to combine my experiences. I was a CEO of a digital venture, so we invested in companies. I was also a founder of GoTime. So I can consider myself a founder. And then now I'm running a startup, a fintech startup. I think that, from my perspective, Jay is on the dot in saying that before the objective was grow, right? You have plenty of money. It was not winter. Valuations are very high, and the expectation of the investors that just grow that business, spend as much money as you can. I don't care about profitability. When winter came, they changed the criteria. I want it to be profitable now. If you have grown your business so much that you almost have no money anymore, that you've burned a lot and you're just left with a few months of runway, and then you're suddenly asked to do profitability, and if you're not going to show me a path to profitability, then I won't put money in. Then you're trapped, right? Then you're trapped, and so that's now the cycle that we're all going through. And it's not only happening in the Philippines, but in the Philippines, it's much higher impact because the number of startups actually grew during the non-winter. If you're going to take a look at all of those companies that have been given a lot of money, then maybe you go to research what happened to this, what happened to that. There's only a few survivors left, right? Paymon was very happy to have raised $31 million in 2022. But imagine 20 months after, if it's only growth, that now all of a sudden my mandate was, give me a path to profitability. That's why I'm preserving my runway. I'm preserving my money. I don't want to be put on the spot to say that, I just have 5 months of runway. Can you give me more money? I'm profitable already. You're not sure. You're not sure whether that can be the appetite when you're already profitable, but you only have 5 months of runway. So I think that's a combination of all of those things. We hope that the companies that had the startups that had really good investments. We had very successful Series A, Series B. We had Bill East. We had some, at least at the later stages. We had Sprout again having some additional funding. We have some e-tailing getting into Series A. It remains to be seen what will happen. Grocery was even able to get in 5 million without having the need to raise. But we'll see. But how about the smaller ones? Those are the smaller ones. The early stage are the ones really getting the brunt of this situation.
Just quickly, just in addition to this, there's a phenomenon that's very clear that illustrates this. Before, when you pitch, investors or VCs would ask you for your GMV. Today, they'll ask you for your take rate. It's much more important. Yeah. So that GMV is all gross, okay, that's a sign of growth. But now take rate is a sign of positive cash flow, profitability, etc. So it's much more intelligent now for quote unquote for startup founders.
I guess if I could add one more, Mars, and just to echo also what they said, right? Because of this adjustment, I mean, there was that time offer because everyone first was saying, right, oh, you have to grow, right? And then everyone said, right, well, you have to be profitable. So everyone has to adjust, right? So now you have this time gap where it's like, oh, everyone has to shift, right? But I mean, it's not all doom and gloom, right? I mean, the good thing that comes out of this now is that now this is now that we've settled into this new baseline as to okay, being focused on your unit economics, being focused on your cash flow, being focused on the fundamentals of your business, just like Jay and Andrea mentioned, that at least the startups now, if you're a new founder or you're stepping out, at least you're better equipped, right? And then the ones that have gone through it, if you can survive the tough times, right? That really shows how well of a founder you are and how well of a business you are. So, I mean, it's not all bad news. A lot of us say that bad times also present a lot of good opportunities, and it's really up to the startups and the founders and the ecosystem to find the diamonds in the rough.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Before we conclude, I'd like to ask Tina, on behalf of the panelists, to say your closing statement.
Thank you so much, everyone. Tech entrepreneurship is not simple, it's not easy, but we're all here to help each other out. The person who wins, the business will win, is the one that has the right product, the right fit, at the right time, with the right team. It sounds impossible, but it does happen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists and to all the media representatives covering the event. We hope to see you throughout the event.